I'm Sheila Sananda. Thank you for joining me. You may have heard the Buddhist saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And today I'm going to talk to you about pain versus suffering and really how we can get out of suffering and into a more harmonious experience of being, even when painful experiences are happening or have happened in our lives. So I've had a pretty interesting relationship with pain in my life. And it's certainly not that painful things haven't happened and painful events have come up in my life, but it's about how I've chosen to approach those painful experiences. And the approach and really your mental way of being with anything that comes up is what will shift your experience of suffering. For one thing, when I had both of my children, natural birth at home, in a pool of water, in my living room, never went to a hospital with either one. That is just what I was comfortable with. And there was no, epidural, no medication, no any kind of anything, no drugs in my system, because I wanted my children to not be drugged when they came out. No judgment. If you've given birth, then you're a hero and all ways of giving birth are valid. But my choice was not to have any drugs in my system or my children's, to do it at home with a midwife. That's what made me happy and comfortable. And so I had to find a way to overcome what was obviously a very painful experience. So I was able to, in my mind, put that pain in a box that was all about the payoff. Because on the other side of that pain is the most amazing thing, which is the birth of a new human, my child. And that's worth any amount of pain in my experience. It was so worth it. Like I would do it that way every time if I was going to continue to have children, because it was just such a beautiful way to be coherent. No doctors present. No offense to doctors. I don't like to call in doctors unless there's true emergency. This is an emergence, not an emergency. Childbirth to me was something sacred and special that humanity was made for. And I didn't see any reason to bring an emergency assistance into an experience like that. And therefore, I did have very sacred births at home, low light or even candlelight, and just this very nurturing, loving environment. Again, not saying it was easy. Certainly there was pain, but my relationship to that was not one of suffering. It was one of transformation and emergence rather than emergency. We can really do this with anything that comes up in life. And when you have a habit of approaching challenging or painful situations in this way, where I'm going to choose something other than suffering, I'm going to choose transformation, I'm going to choose expansion, I'm going to choose to see beyond the challenge that's in front of me. This is where you really are able to shift timelines and power through things in miraculous ways. Now, we have all had challenging events happen. I mean, if you haven't, it's inevitable that at some point you will. And one of the things that I look back on in my life that was probably the most challenging thing was the death of my brother when I was 30 years old. He was 34. And I remember hearing about it. He died in a motorcycle accident. My aunts came to my house one morning very, very early. It was about 6 a.m. It's actually the morning of 4th of July. He passed away just after midnight on 4th of July, many years ago now. But I remember that my daughter was sleeping in the other room, and my boyfriend at the time answered the door, and I could hear or even hear and feel a frequency of, I knew someone had died. I could feel it. And it was evident. And my very first thought was, thank God my daughter is sleeping in the other room. I know she's okay, because the worst thing I can imagine, the worst pain I could imagine, is losing a child. And then my next thought was my mother. And I noticed my mind went to all the people that I was close to, thinking, oh my gosh, who is it? And I came downstairs and they told me my brother had passed away in a motorcycle accident. And I actually went into a really numb experience right away. Shock will do that. What happened going forward is the way that my parents processed it was extremely different. My father, they were so close, and my father did not deal with it well. He didn't have a coping mechanism that worked. He ended up turning to alcohol. That just, went down a very difficult road. My mother, on the other hand, well, she grieved in a natural way. She was able to find other things to fill that void and grieve and get it out and process through it and move through in a really amazing way. Now, it's not something that you ever get over when you lose someone close to you, and especially a child. However, she was able to overcome and get herself into a very transformed space where she was no longer suffering. And of course, those moments of sadness will come up when you lose people. They do. And that's natural and healthy. But she was not suffering in the process after a certain period of time went by. And my father continued to go down a path of suffering and really self-destruction. And myself, during that time, I felt like I needed to be a support to my family, to my parents, because they had the greater loss. This is just in my mind, my way of processing it at the time, was that their loss was greater because they lost a child. And even though I lost my only brother and we were close and it was a horrible loss for me, I didn't feel like I had the right to grieve fully, because I needed to be strong and present for them, because their loss in my mind was bigger. Now, even more recently, I've been processing through that. I've been able to clear layers of grief from losing him. And I'm also connected to him in the spirit realm. Because he's gone doesn't mean that I no longer have a connection to him, but it's natural that we're going to grieve the loss of that personality, that body, that physicality. I won't get to hug him or, watch him raise a family or have our kids interact together. It's really the loss of a reality. New timeline began and another one ended. So it's grieving the loss of a perceived timeline and the way that I thought things would go. So, point being, even in grief, there are healthy and unhealthy ways to transform and overcome suffering. And if you don't do that, the path leads to more suffering and self-destruction. And so it is so very important to have healthy ways to deal with the difficulties of life that come up. So what are the ways that we can overcome suffering and stop being in pain? And I'm going to start with a primary one, which is to let yourself feel what's coming up. Now, in the short term, you're going to feel more pain. You're going to feel what's up for you and allow yourself to feel it, experience it, cry. Crying is so important and cathartic to release and clear emotions from your physicality, from the physical body, to let yourself go through the stages of grief, however they come up for you. Let yourself experience them, indulge in the emotional purging. So one of the ways that I do this with clients is that I have them tune in to whatever the feeling is. Get in touch with the emotional feeling that you're feeling, or the pain itself that you're feeling. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be both. A lot of times it's a mixture of both. Find it in your body, feel it fully, make contact with it, and give it 100% of your attention. All of your attention. Really give it the focus that it's calling for, because pain is a request for attention. Whenever you're feeling pain, it's a request for attention. Think about if you cut yourself or burn yourself, you get this intense pain. It's a call. It's the body's way of saying, I have an issue. I need your full, immediate attention. All pain needs your full, immediate attention. And we have this habit of giving our full, immediate attention to whether it's an emergency like a cut or a burn or wound, but we avoid when it's an emotional pain. We want to suppress it, pretend it's not there, run the other way, drink alcohol or take drugs to avoid it. We go into all of this avoidance. And in order to overcome or transform it, we must get present with it, just like we would if we were burned or injured physically in some way. So the way that we do that is to focus intensely on that pain and give it 100% of your attention. This is a meditation. So don't do this when you're surrounded by other people or, in a public place. This is best done in a place where you can really be private and go deeply into what you're experiencing. So deeply focus on what you're feeling, and then give your feeling a voice. This is anthropomorphizing the pain that you're experiencing or the suffering. So you can find it, do a body scan and see if there's a correlating part of your body. A lot of times, we might feel it in the gut or in the liver area, or could be connected to some other part of your body. There's no right or wrong here, but just scan your body and see if some part of your body is asking for attention. And then if you find a place in your body that's asking for attention, that's feeling pain or some sensation when you ask, then dig in and give it a voice. Ask it, what do you need? Let yourself feel it. Let it show you. Let it give you all of the pain, the suffering, everything that it's experiencing, and then speak to it. Give it a voice, give it a personality, give it a way of expressing to you. So ask it what it needs. Ask it, anything, to tell you anything that it wants to tell you, and then listen, be an open listening so that you can hear it and receive that information and understanding in a compassionate, non-judgment way. It might be something that started when you were very, very young, or an infant, or even from a past life that carried into this life through a pattern, or carried from your infancy into your childhood, into your adulthood, because there's a pattern that was put in place that was never addressed and repatterned or reprogrammed. So you want to give it the opportunity to share, okay, when I was, maybe you were 4 years old and the children rejected you and called you names, and something happened. Could be anything, but something happened and a pain opened up, a wound opened up emotionally, like that. You might be able to feel that in your heart. So talk to it, let it express, let it share. Anything goes. It could be anything at all. Just be very open and non-judgmental with yourself and start to get that information. And what you want to do then is let that part of yourself share whatever comes up, and then go into just loving acceptance of yourself, of that part of yourself that felt that pain, that went into suffering, and then love that part of yourself the way that it wants to be loved, the way that maybe if it's a small child part of you that got stuck, love it the way you would have wanted your parent or your caregiver to give you love that you maybe didn't get at that time. And in this way, you can go through your whole body and then your emotional field and find these parts of yourself that have been neglected, that have been in suffering all this time. It might even take you to a past life experience or multiple past life experiences. And just indulge, even if it feels like you're imagining it, that's perfect. This all exists in the realm of imagination. It's not the logical brain. It's the other, like the more imaginative part of yourself. That's intuition. So you're just tuning in. It doesn't matter. Don't judge it. Wherever it comes from, let it come out, let it come out, let it come out. Purge it, let it release. And then when you feel like it's done, just give it a big hug, love yourself up, and move to the next thing. Or maybe there's more expressing to do. Maybe you're left with a feeling. If you feel clear in your field, then you probably did everything you needed to do for that situation. But a lot of times there will be layers that come up. So maybe the next thing is to just go out in nature. Maybe it's to scream and yell. Maybe you had some anger or rage come up. Again, just get that out. Don't suppress it. Let it out, not on someone else or at someone else, but let it out in a safe way in your own space where you're not harming other people. And then you're going to feel so much better. And I highly recommend going into nature, either during or after this experience. Ground with bare feet on the ground, really tune into the earth. You can tune into a tree, you can hug a tree, you can just be around the plants. Plant medicine is wonderful. Just being in the experience of plants. I don't mean consuming plant medicine, but being around plants and nature when you're doing this work is very, very healing. So that is the first and primary way to transform pain and suffering and have a clearing and an expansion. You'll feel so much relief from this. Another wonderful way is breath work. And I do teach breathwork classes. I have them on my website, Ascension Breathwork, but there are many, many, many types of breathwork out there. So mine isn't the only one. I find breathwork a wonderful way to release and relieve yourself from stored trauma in the body. Oftentimes, we don't even know what it's attached to. Sometimes memories will come up with it, which is wonderful to get that out, breathe it out, and allow that energy to move and clear. And a third way that I want to share with you today is creativity. So getting yourself into creative flow. And the best way to start any creative process is with movement. If you can, take a walk outside or run outside or bike ride outside, swimming outside, anything outside is great. Or if you don't have access to that stuff outside or the weather's bad, then you can do it inside, go to a gym, or even do it in your house. Dancing is amazing for this. Start to loosen up the energy, move the energy, and then go into a creative process. It might be writing, journaling, automatic writing. It might be painting. It might be drawing. It might be any other form, sculpting, any other form where you can get your hands busy working. If it is writing, try and bypass your mental, like your thoughts, and go straight to just like not thinking and analyzing what's coming out, just writing for the sake of writing. And then it's really a purging type of writing that happens, and it's an emotional cleanse. If it's painting, try not to control the painting, or drawing, try not to be overly controlled. Just let whatever wants to come out, just kind of like, just throw it out, purge it out onto the paper or the canvas or whatever you're working with. and let that stuff move. Getting physical with the body, letting the body move, letting the body let that stuff go is a wonderful way to move from pain and suffering into clarity and really more harmony in the body, more harmony in the emotions, more harmony in the mind. And then you have that spiritual connection open back up. I'd love to hear from you. If you try some of these processes, let me know what works for you. What did you try? How did it work? What will you continue doing? Leave me a note in the comments just to let me know. And I really appreciate you tuning in. If this is valuable to you, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment. And I love you. I appreciate you. Namaste.